around. Then I need this group over here to look over at me. Sit up nice and straight and tall. Okay, so what numbers do we get to bump up? What numbers do we get to bump up? Let's talk about how old do you have to be to go to school. And I'm not talking preschool. Because preschool, what does pre mean? Before you actually go to school. So it's like practice for school. So I want to know, if I'm going to teach kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth grade, how old do you have to be?
You have to be.
Yes, ma'am.
5.
You have to be 5 to go to kindergarten, definitely. They don't let you in if you're 4, do they? You have to be old enough, okay? Any other? Yes?
6.
You have to be 5, 6, what other ages? You can say them out loud.
7, 8, 9.
Right, and we don't have to look at any of the ones above that because we're just looking at single digits when we round. So if you're 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you get to do what with that number? Yes? Well, you get to go to school. If you're old enough to go to school, if one of these numbers are big enough, it's also big enough to do what?
Make the other number before it bigger.
Right, we can bump the number up. What do we do with it?
Move the number up.
Very good. I can tell you are listening. Okay, now, what age is not old enough to go to school? What age would be really, really hard for those kindergartners, teachers to teach? Yes. 1, definitely. They don't want 1-year-olds. Those are for
2.
daycare. What was that?
2.
2-year-olds. Yes.
3.
3-year-olds. What else, boys and girls?
4.
Okay, so that's too little to go to school. So those numbers have to stay the
same.
Very good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to look at some numbers, and if I see somebody who really knows how to do this, and the way I know is that you're talking and you're telling me what to do, then I'm going to let you help teach. Okay? So, I'm going to give you a number. I'm going to start with something kind of easy, and then I'm going to get a little tougher. So here's 86, and when we're rounding we're going to start by rounding to the nearest 10. So if we're rounding to the nearest 10, what place am I going to look at first? What do I need to underline? The 8. What place is the 8?
The 10s.
The 10's place.
It makes a 90.
So you want to underline the 10's place and circle the what place? The 1's place. The reason I don't say circle the 6 is because it's not always going to be a 6, is it? But this is always the 1's place. Okay, now look at this circled number. This is the big number that we're going to look at, and we're going to ask, is 6 old enough to go to school?
Yes. So it goes up.
So let's look at, so the 8 gets to
a 9.
Bump to a 9, and everything to the right becomes
a 0.
Very good. Okay? So I'm only going to give you one more easy one. That's all, because I can tell you know how to do this. If I have, okay, I'm still rounding to the nearest 10, so what place do I underline?
The 9.
The what place is it? The 10's place, and I circle the
1.
You are catching on. Now, we're not going to call out answers. We're going to go through the process, because a teacher can go through the process, right? Okay. What are we going to ask? Let's all ask this together. Is 4 old enough to go to school? What do y'all think?
No.
Definitely not. So the 9
Changes.
stays the same. It can't change if it's not old enough. And everything to the right becomes a 0. Okay, very good. Now, I think you're ready for some harder ones. Okay? Definitely ready for some tougher ones. And if we do a good job, I have something you can do with these. Okay, how about, all right, 227. Now, guess what? We're still rounding to the nearest 10. Okay, so what place do I underline? You can say it out loud. The what? 10. Somebody over here said hundreds. Why do I not underline the hundreds place?
Because you said round to the nearest 10.
Rounding to the nearest 10. That's the biggest mistake that some of us make, is we assume that if there's a hundreds place that we just start rounding to the nearest hundreds. But sometimes we have to get a close answer, so we round to the nearest 10. So I'm going to underline the what place? What? And I circle the
One place.
Okay. Now I'm gonna let us practice this one, because this is where it gets tricky. Let's look at this, the circled number. Ask the question.
Is 7 old enough to go to school? Yes.
Okay. Is 7 old enough to go to school?
Yes.
So the 2
Becomes a 3.
becomes a 3. Everything to the right becomes a
0.
Now, since I'm not rounding to the nearest 100, I don't get to change this hundreds place at all,
Pull it down.
right?
You just pull it down.
You just pull it down. You don't get to change that number, okay? All right, let's try this again. Let's do another one. Let's do
Can you write it down?
463. Yes, you can write this one down on your paper. We're going to talk through this one. Okay. So you're going to do what you're telling me. Okay, we're still rounding to the nearest 10. Now we're going to take the same number in a minute and we'll do it differently. Okay, so if we're rounding to the nearest 10, what do we need to underline? The what?
The 10 place.
And I circle the
One place.
okay? Thumbs up once you've done that. Okay. Now I'm going to look at, which number am I going to look at? The circled number. Okay, ask the question. Is
3 old enough to go to school?
Is 3 old enough to go to school? No way. So the 6 stays the same. Everything to the right becomes a
0. And drop the 4 down.
Drop the 4 down. You got it. Thumbs up if you got that. Okay, can I take this same number and round it to the nearest 100? Is that possible? Absolutely. I have to do it differently. The answer is going to look different. So let's write the same number again. Only this time we're going to round it to the nearest 100. Okay? So if I'm rounding to the nearest 100, what place am I going to underline? Very good. I've got several people that know. Yes? Now I'm going to underline the hundreds place. Okay? And I'm going to, am I going to circle the ones place still?
No.
What am I going to circle?
10.
Tens place. So I'm looking a little bit differently now. Okay, so this is a little different. Is 6 old enough to go to school? Isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So the 4 becomes a
5.
and
Everything right. 0.
very good. Since there's 2 numbers to the right, 2 numbers, we're going to have 2 zeros. So sometimes we want to round to the nearest 100. Sometimes we want to round to the nearest 10. Okay, let's try a couple more. How about 739? Everyone write 739. Okay, let's start by rounding to the nearest 10. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 10, what do I need to do first? You can say it out loud.
Underline the 3.
Wait, underline the what?
10.
And?
Circle the lines.
Okay, thumbs up if you got that part. Okay, what's the question I'm going to ask?
Is 9 old enough to go to school?
Is it. We're not rounding to the nearest hundred. Okay, take the same number now, and I want you to round it to the nearest hundred. So now what do I underline? You can say it out loud. The hundredths place, and circle the
Tenth place.
the tens place this time, not the ones place, right? It's going to be a little different. Okay, what are we going to ask this time? Is
3 old enough to go to school? No.
So,
Everything.
wait, we haven't done any of this yet. So the
7 stays the same.
and
Everything is louder than 0.
you got it. Very good. Okay, I think we're almost ready to have one of you show us how to do this. But I want to hear you do maybe one or two more. How about 383? Everyone write 383. All right, I'm going to start this time by rounding to the nearest hundred. So what am I, and you can call out for me, what am I going to underline?
The hundreds.
And circle the,
Tenth place.
okay? Ask the question.
Is 8 old enough to go to school? Yes.
So the
3 plus 4.
and,
Everything is louder than 0.
all right, now let's take the same number and round to the nearest 10.